Welcome to the Let's Talk Politics Alabama podcast with your host, Daniel Stover and Russ Sanders, where we take a look at Alabama politics like a drive down I-65 from North Alabama to the state capital in Montgomery and all the way to the Sugar Sand Coast.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
We choose truth over facts.
I don't want to speak negatively. I said, though, that if I lose this election, maybe I'll end up moving to Alabama.
Someone has once said that actually, as long as there are final exams, there will be prayer in schools.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Let's Talk Politics Alabama podcast with your host, Daniel Stover and Squeaky Sanders.
That's my chair.
Sure, that's what it is, yeah. So, Russ, what you been up to?
Oh, nothing much. I do have some opening comments, though, on a very serious note. A lot of people seeing what took place in Afghanistan. It's horrible. And I know that there's a lot of veterans out there thinking about that. Probably have some understanding of what Vietnam's vets feel like. And just want to let you know that your service didn't matter. What you did was important, and that you didn't mess anything up. Politicians did. People in suits messed it up. Not soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. It was politicians that screwed that one up. So don't ever forget that, and what you did matter. And then second of all, went to the Trump rally. Very awesome experience. One of the most fun things I've ever done, politically especially. Got to see a lot of cool faces, a lot of big name people. Thought it was a big event. If anybody says it was less than 40,000, 45,000, they're wrong. That was a lot of people there. Reminiscent of some 2000, 2002 Talladega races. I mean, it was a bunch of people there. Probably some of the same people as at those Talladega races was there, but it was a great time, great experience. Made you feel good to be American. People were unapologetically pro USA. It was just a really good, fun event. And if anybody has the opportunity to go to one of those, I highly encourage it.
Well, tonight we have a circuit. Hang on. I almost said circuit clerk. Circuit judge candidate, Miss Callie, and I still want to say it, Chenault. But Callie, you and I went to school together, as you were Callie Chenault at that point.
Now Callie Waldrop.
Yep, and now Callie Waldrop. You married some guy, some big, tall, weird guy named Chris, right?
That's correct. I'll still answer to Chenault, though.
I hope so. It's on your signs.
Yeah.
So, what you been up to since elementary school?
Not too much, really. No. Doesn't really seem all that long ago. But yes, after I left Moulton schools in the 6th grade, it was a decision my mom made for me and my sister. She taught at the high school at the time and thought it would be better if we had our school experience separate from her. So she sent us to Hartselle, where I graduated. After high school, I went to Calhoun and then Athens State University, where I got a degree in business administration, actually. My parents had, my mom had retired from teaching. My dad had sold the Ford dealership, and they were both running the Western Sirloin Steakhouse, the steakhouse as everybody knows it. And I just kind of assumed that's the route I would go as well, take over the family business. Spent many hours down there and quickly decided that's not what I wanted to do. So after graduating, I then went to law school at the University of Alabama and graduated. And that's when my career basically in public service began. My first job was in Morgan County District Attorney's Office, and then left there, went to Madison County District Attorney's Office, stayed there for about 6 or 7 years, and that's when I had my first child. So I spent a year at home actually with my daughter She was 1 at the time. Possibly would have stayed home a little bit longer, but the opening came when Jim Osborne retired and Eric Jett was appointed district attorney. It left an opening, and so I took the opportunity to come back home and serve the citizens of Lawrence County in that capacity in the DA's office there. And I came back in 2012 and been back ever since. So it's good to be home.
Well, it's great to have you back in Lawrence County. What do you believe? I would ask, what do you believe would make you a good circuit judge? But you're already a judge, though, right?
I am. About 2 years ago, the municipal judge in the town of Cortland retired, and I applied for that position, and I was appointed as such. Like I said, I think my first docket fair was December. I lose some time because of COVID, of course, as everybody does. December of 2019. So we had a couple of court dates, and then, of course, we were closed down for a couple of months, but we've been going strong ever since.
So you've had a little bit of experience as a judge, so you're not just going into the circuit judge race blind, or just as a lawyer.
Correct. I have a little bit of experience. I also, as I've said before, have spent my entire career in district attorney's offices, and so I have spent lots of time in a circuit courtroom, lots of time in a district courtroom. So I'm definitely not unfamiliar. I won't say that I have it all laid out and know exactly what's going on, but I definitely maybe have a good start. I'll put it that way.
Having testified in both Morgan County and Madison County, that's a lot different than Lawrence County. Is there anything from there? I mean, just their sheer volume of cases they obviously have more resources, but their sheer volume of cases is big. Is there stuff or things that you've seen in Madison and Morgan County that could probably apply to Lawrence County? Anything like that?
Most definitely. I guess I've probably been in all the different courtrooms in Madison County and Morgan
There's
County.
a bunch of them. I got lost.
There is a bunch. We would be assigned to one particular one for some things, but then would switch in and out for other situations, mostly circuit court. So I definitely learned a lot being in those courtrooms. I think there are many experiences and things that I will be able to bring to Lawrence County to make it better. I mean, I guess I've always been of the mindset that we can always learn from others how to do things differently. I would never be satisfied with just the status quo. I constantly want to learn how to do things better, more efficiently, make things more comfortable for the citizens, a little more efficient. Just the whole courthouse experience to me should be a positive one, even if it's maybe the subject matter is not so positive, but we can at least do what we can to make all the other aspects of visiting the courthouse a positive one. So I made a lot of friends in those courthouses. Some of them were not judges. Some of the ones that are judges now were not when I was there. And I feel very comfortable calling many of them and asking their advice, visiting with them, sort of overseeing, watching them handle court.
All right, Callie. So those of us that don't spend a whole lot of time in the court system, you mentioned about educating yourself through other courts and everything, but there's a lot of us that don't have experiences with court system, unlike you and Russ, who spend most of your days in it. Can you kind of tell us what's the dividing line, between circuit court and district court, kind of the short layman's answer to where we'll all understand it and not the big legalese?
Yes, of course. District court is going to handle all of traffic tickets that are written by a Lawrence County deputy or a trooper. Traffic tickets written within a city limit or a town or municipality are handled by those individual courts. So traffic tickets from troopers and sheriff's deputy, they will handle all misdemeanor offenses that happen within the county. Again, any sort of misdemeanor that happens within the city limits of Moulton, for example, will be handled by the Moulton Municipal Court. And when I say misdemeanor, that's going to be any crime where the maximum punishment that a person could receive is less than a year. DUI, for example, is a misdemeanor, harassment, those sorts of things. And those misdemeanors can be brought through the district court either by a law enforcement officer actually starting the case or by a citizen. A citizen would go up to the clerk's office and can get a warrant as well. The district court also handles small claims, lawsuits, civil lawsuits that are less than $10,000. The monetary loss is less than $10,000. And district court handles all of the juvenile court cases, and that would be countywide. In comparison, the circuit court then in the criminal world would handle all felony cases. Felony being a crime committed where your minimum possible sentence is a year. Of course, the maximum, as we all know, could be life without, or even death. But if the minimum punishment that they could receive is more than a year, then that's going to be a felony and it would go in the circuit court. The circuit court handles all domestic relations, meaning married individuals. So if two people are married, obviously they're divorcing. The circuit court would handle that and any subsequent issue that may come up with visitation, custody, child support between married individuals. And then the circuit court would handle all civil lawsuits where the amount of money in dispute is greater than $10,000. And I think that's about it as far as now. The circuit court would also handle any appeals from the district court. So if you go through district court and you don't like the outcome, then you actually, they call it a trial de novo, which is a fancy way of saying a new trial, meaning you start over like it never happened in district court, in circuit court. Whereas in district court, there is no jury for any, divorce, civil lawsuits, criminal things, there's no jury. And once you get to circuit court, all of those cases, for the most part, there are exceptions, but for the most part, there are handled or decided by a jury.
So, Callie, here's the thing. We hear rumors around the county and stuff of things that are going on in our court system. Even nationally, the court systems are kind of slow and everything. But we've heard rumors even in our own court system here in Lawrence County that we've got people that are waiting 2 and 3 years for uncontested divorces. Do you know anything about that, or is there any truth to that? What can we do to speed that up if that is the case?
I personally have not experienced that just because I do not do any domestic work. I did speak to an individual. I won't name any names, but he did experience something very similar where the folks that he was knew personally had an uncontested divorce where it did take a very long time. I won't say exactly how long, but I know it was at least 2 years, if not more. And honestly, I know I've obviously never been a circuit judge, so I can't speak to the volume and the reasons for delay. But I have been in the court system long enough that I think I could at least come up with a reason why something would take that long. And when it comes to an uncontested divorce where there's an agreement, I really cannot come up with any good reason why it should take 2 years. I know that there are some natural delays just because of the volume or other types of court cases getting in the way. There's also, with an uncontested divorce, a mandatory 30-day cooling off period. So that would generate some delay, but beyond just the caseload and the mandatory waiting times, I can't fathom a reason why an uncontested divorce would take that long. I think that they should be somewhat of a priority, because I think about the lives that are in limbo during that time period. You're talking about adults that can't move on, children that don't know what's next or what the custody arrangement's going to be. So I would certainly try to make that a priority, and I would never want something like that to take that long.
Well, let's talk about a couple things here. On your website, you talk about implementing a new program called Handle with Care. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that entails?
Sure. I have spent a lot of my career in the DA's office working in juvenile court. And I do hold a special place in my heart for the kids of this county. I have kids of my own too, and I firmly believe that, our children are the future of this county, and the way that we interact and sort of mold our children is going to shape the future of Lawrence County as well. So Handle with Care is a collaboration between law enforcement and the schools. Many kids, probably far more than most ever realize, even far more than I realize, have traumatic situations happen at their home at night or over the weekend, being it their parents are in a domestic violence situation, many different things. There could be domestic violence, as I said, sexual abuse, all sorts of very traumatic events in a kid's life. And then they're expected to wake up the next day and go to school and perform and act like nothing's happened. And so, as I said, the Handle with Care, it's a collaboration between law enforcement and the schools. And when there is a certain school-age child that is subjected to this traumatic event, an email would be generated by law enforcement that simply says to the teacher or the school board member, Handle, and you would insert the child's name with care. And once they receive that email, they would be trained on what that means, trained on what to do in that situation with the child. And it's just to sort of, ease the pressure off that kid the next day at school. If they're falling asleep at their desk because they were up all night, we would want that teacher to be compassionate about that and not send them to the office or however they choose to. I don't know. There's pulling of cards when they're younger. I'm sure it's the office when they're older. Or if they're absent, it would explain that. If they're acting out in class, it sort of gives the teacher an idea of why that may be happening. It's not just because that child's a bad child or they've been through a traumatic experience, and that just may be their way of dealing with it. So it's just, like I said, it's like just give that teacher an idea of what's going on so they can be a little bit more compassionate towards that child. But it's, I'm really excited about it. I went to a conference where several of the folks that I was at a table with have already implemented the program, and I think it could be a great benefit to our kids and to our schools and to everybody involved.
It sounds like it would definitely be something that we should invest in, whether it costs anything or not. But I mean, I haven't been in that situation or know anybody really close to me that's in that situation, but I know I've heard about actually through your husband's work with the
Drug endangered children.
yes, thank you, Russ. I've heard through that though that some of the things that go on, in the middle of the night, kids are having to be removed or something goes on, and yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense to have some sort of program like that that would kind of let the school know of, hey, something's going on with this kid. So, Russ?
Right, and it's intended to be confidential. Like they would never elaborate on what happened. They just know that something happened. It could have been any number of things, and let's handle that kid with care.
Right.
I've seen in some other counties or heard of it in other counties, not really been a part of it or seen it, firsthand, was a veterans court. You know anything about that, or is that something that could be implemented here? I know there's a lot of veterans in Lawrence County. Not that veterans get in trouble all the time, but I know that,
Right.
there's a chance of that happening.
Definitely. I also have never been associated with a veterans court. I do know there are many people that have that, and I think it's a great idea. I was a part of mental health court in Madison County. Of course, I've been a part of drug court in Lawrence County, but to me, it's more, I guess, comparable to a mental health court. But I think it would be a great asset to Lawrence County to have, because there are a lot of veterans, and there are reasons why a veteran might find themselves either in a substance abuse situation, in a more violent situation, just because of things such as post-traumatic stress disorder. So I think it's definitely something that Lawrence County could benefit from, and I would be very interested in learning more about it and seeing if it's something we could get implemented in Lawrence County.
Well, you just mentioned about drug court. What exactly is that? And is that something that we already have, or is it something that we need to make improvements on if we do have it? Or how would you run it even?
Drug court, unfortunately, substance abuse, it's a very big problem in Lawrence County. It's a big problem everywhere, to be honest. And I would say that it's probably the root of, I won't give a statistic because I don't know, but it is the root of a lot of our criminal activity in Lawrence County. Either they're thefts or burglaries or those types of crimes. They're trying to find money for drugs, or they're under the influence of drugs, and it causes them to do that when they wouldn't otherwise. So I think drug court is a very good, it's a very good program if run correctly. It is designed for sort of your first time offenders, ideally. Occasionally there are, if somebody, maybe they have had prior criminal activity, but it's been a long time, or, but for the most part, drug court is designed for some of the, first time offenders. And the idea is their case is just handled differently. They'll have a series of classes they attend, group meetings, community service, counseling, and then there's, of course, the sort of to keep them accountable. There's the drug testing that they have, and it works in steps. So at the beginning, it's a little more intense. Your drug tests are a little more often, your classes are more often, your counseling is more often, and then as you progress through the program, it gradually decreases. And drug court was, we've had a drug court in Lawrence County, and technically we still do, but the last time I checked, I think there's only one person still in the drug court program. And I do know that COVID had some influence on that, but it just, I was a part of drug court. When I was a part of drug court, we probably had 15 participants, and just changes in jobs. That was one of the parts of the DA's office that I let go. And it's just kind of, I guess, fizzled out, for lack of a better explanation. I don't really know because I'm not in it anymore, but I just think that it's a program that we need to have. There's too many drug cases, and they're constantly forcing us to try to come up with alternative sentencing for because the caseload's too high to put everybody in prison. They don't, all the prisons are overcrowded. And so all of these programs are a way to sort of try to give these people the punishment they deserve, but at the same time, the second chance they may deserve. Because if somebody does successfully complete drug court, then their cases are dismissed, the record's sealed. And, if they're later applying for a job or school or whatever the case may be, if they get a criminal history run, then it's gone, it's sealed. So it gives them a second chance. So there are some punishment aspects of it, but then there's also resources and help to hopefully, if there's a substance abuse issue, resolve it, and give them resources to use after the fact. So I do plan to re-implement the drug court, get it kind of back up and running. And I have people that are willing to work with me and help me to do that.
You mentioned alternative sentencing. I know one thing that has been kind of a buzzword that I've heard around law enforcement and around Lawrence County is community corrections. Is that something, I know right now, I think the person that was running it, I think I'd heard that they had retired and nobody really took over it when that happened. And so now it's kind of went to the wayside. But is that something that you would be looking at as an alternative sentencing?
Definitely. As I said in reference to the drug court question, they're always griping about prison overcrowding, and it is an issue. And so they started with sentencing guidelines to try to come up with these numbers that some people just don't qualify for prison. And so it is getting harder. I don't want to say harder to send people to prison, because that's not always the goal, but there are some cases where they would routinely go to prison where they just don't or can't anymore. And so the community corrections is, in my sort of a happy medium, perhaps, because it's like probation, except it's much more intensive supervision. It's more strict as far as the rules, the reporting, and it's also something that I believe that the legislators are working towards making mandatory. So I do think it's a good program, but I also think it's a program we're going to have, even if we didn't want to. So I think it's very important to get it back up and running. And so, yes, I plan to do all I can to get that back going. When I was in drug court, some of other counties' community corrections programs actually ran their drug court. So I made contacts through that. So I feel like there are plenty of people I could reach out to with and get ideas and ways to get that program back up and running.
What's the circuit judge's role in both of those?
Say that again, I didn't hear it.
What's the circuit judge's role in both community corrections and drug court?
From my experience with drug court, he was, and I was in drug court under Judge Craig. He basically just kind of an accountability, like he called roll, checked on everybody, make sure they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And of course, if they were not, then there would be sanctions or punishment. In community corrections, I'll be honest, I don't know. I think he was just sort of on the outside, on the board kind of thing, just sort of overseeing it. I don't know that he had any hands-on experience with community corrections. I do know that Lawrence County was the pilot program for the community corrections years ago under Judge Rich. And so I think the way structurally that Lawrence County's program was set up was a little bit different than other counties. So in all reality, I don't know that the circuit judge has to have any particular role in community corrections, but I do think it is important for the if I'm elected circuit judge to get it back going the way it's supposed to and structure the way that it needs to be structured. But as far as actually being part of that program, I don't see where I would be much.
Did you say there was a board over community corrections?
It's my understanding it's a board made up of the circuit judge, the sheriff, the DA, I believe one of the commissioners, the district judge, and that may be it. So it just, like I said, our program, it probably needed to be restructured because it was the pilot program, and but for whatever reason, it's just once that director retired, it hasn't happened.
So Callie, with community corrections, is that almost like work release, or how does that work? I mean,
I guess I would say community corrections is maybe designed to be a step below, and by below, less secure than work release, because the work release inmates actually go to jail to spend the night or the weekend and get whenever the job. I mean, usually the jobs have to be during the day, and they get released to go to work, and then they go back to the jail. Community corrections, they are out. They are completely free. They can go to their jobs, their homes, whatever. But they are getting prison credit for that time. And that's why it's important to me for it to be a very structured program, a very highly intensive, lots of supervision, because if someone is on community corrections for 2 years, for example, and they're reporting in, they are getting 2 years prison credit for that time, even though they are basically free. They're not in a lockup facility of any sort. Now, if they violate the terms of the community corrections, then yes, they would be subject to serving that prison sentence. But it's a huge benefit to the defendants because, like I said, they're getting credit for their prison sentence. They are, if they're later revoked, they get credit for that time they're being supervised by community corrections. So it's, to me, it's very important that it be run strictly and efficiently. And like I said, I know there are rumors, talk about making it mandatory just to try to ease the pressure off of the prison overcrowding.
so in community corrections, it wouldn't be like work release. You're saying that you would actually be out, but you would just have to report to the sheriff's department or a specific person, daily, weekly, monthly, something like that. Kind of like a higher grade of parole then. Is that right?
Right. It's kind of in between work release and probation. Probation is generally less intensive, less often to report. So it's sort of in between those two.
Hey, I don't know anything about community corrections. I've heard little bits and pieces, so I'm trying to learn here. So here's a question for you. Why in the world have you decided to try to run for judge? I mean, there'll be a lot of people that'll tell you to run for something is extremely time consuming, tiresome, and just drags your family through everything because they're along with you. I mean, I saw pictures the other day of your kids out there with you at a water station, with their shirts on and everything. It's not, a lot of people don't understand that running for an office, it's not just that person, it's the whole family. I mean, even back to your parents and everything.
That is true. And thankfully, my husband is very supportive. My mom is very supportive. And my kids get excited. The race you were talking about, I asked Max the night before. I was like, we're going to have to leave really early. And you're gamey. My mom, she'll come over here if you don't. And he was like, no, I want to go. So several of the events that my kids have gone with me too, they've just been excited. So I am very blessed to have the support of my entire family, because you're right, it affects them all. It's not just something that I'm doing. We're all in this, and I don't think I could do it without their support. So I guess to answer, why in the world would I want to do this? When I was in law school and during school and then each summers, I had several different kinds of jobs and clerked for different judges, and it was always one of my favorite experiences. And just started thinking at that point, it would be a dream come true to sort of reach the pinnacle of my career for that to be a judge in some capacity, district judge, circuit judge. I didn't know exactly. Like, I never had my eye set on one particular position. And of course, when I graduated, I have spent the last 17 years in public service. And I can't imagine sort of a better finish, so to speak, than to be able to serve Lawrence County as their judge, their circuit judge. And like I said, I've been in different counties. I never knew if my path would lead towards that or not. And so I stand here in that path now, and it's very surreal, and I'm very thankful, and I'm excited, and I look forward to it. So I guess I don't really know why. I may, look back and think, what in the world was I thinking? But I plan to work hard to do the very best that I can, and I see a need in our court system. I see ways that it could be done different and done better. And I want to put my experience and my dedication and my willingness to work hard all together to hopefully make a very good circuit judge for Lawrence County.
Well, now I'm going to turn these questions over to Russ, but we've got to know if you're truly a Republican. So, Russ, you got some questions that we need to have answered on that, don't you?
Yes. Do you believe that to interpret the law the way it's written, like the Constitution, or do you believe that I always hated doing interpolation in math? Do you believe it's a living, a fluid document that, it might apply different, or do you believe that if you want to change that, then laws need to be passed to change the Constitution, or amendments need to happen? Or do you basically believe it's the way it's written, the way the founding fathers intended it?
I absolutely believe that it is the way that it's written. They were the ones to write it out, to sort of envision what would come from those words, and it's not up to us to change them. They are what they are. So.
And then the second question I have: do you believe in death penalty? Because as circuit judge, you potentially could oversee cases that are capital offenses, which means the death penalty.
That's correct, and I do believe in the death penalty. I think it's certainly very, very serious, a very, very difficult decision. But the law allows that punishment in certain situations, and as a circuit judge, it wouldn't be a good experience to have to do it, but I absolutely believe that sometimes it's just what you have to do.
I think that's why I never could be a judge. I never could. I never could. I mean, I know that sounds weird. Comes from in the military, but I think it would be hard for me to. So, but I personally believe in the death penalty. So
right, I would never make light of it. I can't imagine the stress that goes into having to do it. But as circuit judge, you're tasked with that, unfortunately, and I'm prepared to do it if the situation presents itself.
Yeah, you got to be able to go home and go to sleep after that one, and that's going to be a hard one to do. Oh.
It will be. I can imagine it will be. I would never take it lightly. Like I said, it's something. It would have to be a very serious case, and most of the ones that, of course, there's only one kind that it even applies to, and they are all very serious. So I definitely don't look forward to that, but if that's what I'm forced, a situation that I'm in, then I'm prepared to do it.
All right. So I'll lighten the mood here a little bit.
Thank you.
Callie,
Don't
Callie,
Debbie Downer.
well, you know.
Yeah.
Debbie Downer.
Well, you know. Let's see. Uh, Russ, you know, I have to go back to some question or what we were talking about before we really got started. Callie, where you been, all that. But I could have sworn I saw you and Chris driving a Chevrolet truck. I mean, come on now. Was that
Me?
was
No,
I
you
seeing
didn't.
that wrong, or was that a Ford?
If I'm driving it, it's a Ford. Yeah, those roots run deep.
Yeah, the color on your signs, I think, actually matches the old Chenault Ford signs, wasn't it?
They do. That is actually, I gave them an old Chenault Ford tag to try to match the color and the font because I guess if there was one thing I could change about all this, it would be I'd love to have my daddy here watching me go through it, helping me go through it. Because I know he would be proud, but he would just love going out and visiting and seeing everybody. So.
All right. Well, Russ, you got any more questions?
I think I did the damage there at the end of bringing the mood down. So I'll just let it ride right
You
there.
can take that one back.
All right. Well, let's have our joke for the day here. Let's see. All right, Callie. What do you call cheese that's not yours?
Nacho cheese. That was too easy.
Yeah, if you haven't heard that one,
That's kind of like the deer with no eyes. No idea.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if y'all get a chance, you want to find out more about Callie, go look at her Facebook page. And from her Facebook page, you can actually go to her website. I had it pulled up here earlier. You can make donations to her through her website. Get involved. Help her go around everybody's door and leave a tag or knock on it. I know she'll be doing a lot of that here in the coming months. See, anything else I'm leaving out there, Callie?
Oh, I don't know. Like you said, if anybody has any questions or want to ask me, feel free. Like I said, I'm thankful for the opportunity, and I plan to work hard over the next year, meeting folks and explaining to them why I think I deserve to be the next circuit judge for Lawrence County. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on with us and listening to Russ bring us all down here. But in all seriousness, though, Russ, thank you for your service. And I know what's going on in Afghanistan and stuff has really hit you hard. So just thank you for all your service, brother. So all that being said, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so that you get the notifications when we make our uploads. We're trying to make them every Friday. Unfortunately, last week we had a picnic, and if you want to know what that is, you can look on the Facebook page. That's right. Go to our Facebook page and click like on it as well. If you're listening on the podcast softwares, we're on Apple, we're on Google, we're on Podbean, working on a couple more, but make sure that you give us a 5-star on those so that it helps us out to get our channel out more and continue to bring you the information not only from Lawrence County but all throughout the state. So I guess that's about it though. So yeah, thank y'all for stopping in and listening or watching us. And Russ, Callie, I'll give y'all the last words.
Y'all be careful.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.